Sandra. How are you?
We are about to get started. Hi, sorry, who's there?
It's Miss Sandra.
I thought I cut someone else off as well. So we're about to get started. Welcome to our community. We will be recording this call, so just give me 1 second. Today is Sunday, February the 19th, and my name is Haiti. I'm a compulsive overeater. I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery. Welcome to Why Wait for Recovery Sunday Community Meetup. We are so glad you're all here, especially our newcomers, and I see a few of you on our line. Welcome. We're a community of men and women who share our experience, strength, and hope with each other that we may solve our common challenges and help each other to recover from compulsive overeating. We welcome anyone who wishes to change and join us in our recovery. The reason we are all here is because we are sick and tired of being overweight and want to live a healthy and happy life. There is no cost to participate. Our meetings are free to all. Please keep your discussions to food, addiction, and recovery. We don't advocate for any diets or supplements, and this is a no judgment zone. We would like to acknowledge and thank you for showing up tonight. We know that you had other things you could be doing, but you chose to put yourselves and your health first, and we applaud you. Dr. Felice and I are both in recovery. I have struggled with my weight since I was 7 years old. I've tried just about every single diet under the sun, so many weight loss supplements, many appetite suppressants, and all were short-term solutions because I either gained the weight back or gained even more weight. What we focus on through our experience, we have developed a program that works. It incorporates elements of other programs that we have tried and practiced, including ideologies from Overeaters Anonymous, AA, and principles from other programs. From these programs, we utilize components and incorporate them into our daily practices. We encourage you to use whatever methods work for you for your successful recovery. We are vested in our and your recovery, and that is why we show up and created this community. We recognize the importance of having a weekly meeting so we can serve our community better. The purpose of our community is to support each other and keep each other accountable, celebrating each other's struggles and successes in order to live a healthy and happy life. We believe long-lasting recovery lies in balancing mind, body, and spirit. Although solutions lie and unite us to our common problem, we are a community that also respects each other's differences. Whatever problem you may have with food, you are welcome. Is there anyone here for the first time? And if anyone would like to say hi, we encourage you to say hi, tell us your name so we could get to know you better. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Felice for her to do the reading for today.
I'm Felice, and I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery. Hi, everybody. So the reading for today we took from a book called For Today. It's actually from OA, and it was a really great reading, and I wanted to share it with you. Back of tranquility lies conquered unhappiness. That was by David Grayson. Be optimistic. Look on the bright side. I have often tried to follow that advice, but it seldom brought solutions to my problems. It's difficult to get in touch with feelings, hold them up, and examine them in the light of sobriety and abstinence. But what a difference it makes. The great phantoms of misery vanish under such scrutiny, not because I've given them a coating of optimism, but because I've worked my way through the source of my unhappiness. I'm going to read that again. Misery vanishes not because I've given them a coating of optimism, meaning not just because I say I'm fine, because I used to do that all the time. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm great. How's everything? It's perfect, whether I was or I wasn't. But because I worked my way through the source of my unhappiness. For today, many choices are open to me, and we know that our choices that we're going to be talking about today are being honest with myself so that I could be honest with others, sharing with others, I'm going to say that one again too, sharing with others, asking for help, that's a problem that most of us do have, and doing those things I know will secure my journey through recovery.
So we believe that lasting recovery deals with three different aspects, which is mind, body, and spirit. And we've broken up tonight's meeting, we'll meet up in those different sections. So our first one is body. What's eating you? Is it a person, a place, a situation? Are cravings sabotaging your recovery? So Dr. Felice, I wanted to talk to you about what happened to me on Friday, and I'm actually a little embarrassed about what happened. So February the 18th, which was yesterday, would have marked 1 year of clean eating for me, of me having abstained from my trigger foods, of me being in recovery, of me not relapsing. 3 hours before midnight, my body started craving, and I went into total relapse in terms of wanting to eat stuff that I shouldn't eat, that I know is bad for me. And I went and overindulged in nuts. And I know that nuts are innocuous for some people, but for me, it is not only a trigger food, but it was more my attitude in which I did it. So for me, it resulted in me having a diverticulitis attack, which is something I know I have, and I know in the back of my mind, as much as I justified to stay away from this, my disease is such that I couldn't be logical. That for me, when I was going through this, all I could think about was getting through that package, not so much on what will the outcome be if I finish it, what will I feel like after I've done this. And what happened was I had ended up in not only breaking my sobriety in a sense, or staying off my trigger foods, because that's a whole separate section that we'll discuss, but I was in excruciating agony for the whole night that I actually thought of going to the emergency room because I was so uncomfortable and in so much pain. And I did this knowing how bad this is for me. So it really seems to be a disease of the mind that takes control. I mean, 3 hours before I'm 1 year clean. And this is really a huge, it sent me into a whole tiz and turmoil yesterday, where I started beating myself up having done this and having gone through this process. So I just wanted to discuss that, how my cravings really sabotage my recovery.
Yeah, and for that, I'm going to say ain't addiction grand. So what you describe with your food is what any food addict or alcoholic or drug addict describes, where I know in my mind I'm thinking about doing something that I know is going to hurt me in the end, no matter what that is, whether it's your substance or something else. I know that the behavior is going to hurt me in the end, and even though I'm thinking it through to the end, I'm still going to make some type of excuse as to why it's okay for me to do it right now. And you and I had talked last week, and I think the week before, about how a relapse happens way before you pick up. And so I know that you had posted on Facebook, because I read your post, about how you were feeling stressed. So are you comfortable to go into that with me?
Yes. So I started noticing over the last week certain cravings starting to come up. So one thing I can be is honest with myself, that I can pinpoint when things start happening and I bring it up. The reasons why it's happening is the area where I'm not always honest with myself. So tapping into the reasons why I do things isn't at some. I've always come from the place of being fine and perfect. Mm-hmm. So covering up, and really, I don't even know if there's a point of covering that up, but it's just not being that equipped to say this is what is eating me right now, because I don't give myself the time to actually tap into it to say maybe this is it. So yes, I'm 100% being grilled by you.
No, and it's not about being grilled, but you had said that you were having some stress. What is it that you shared on Facebook?
Okay, so essentially, we may be going through some changes. They're all different things. My husband may be considering a new job, which in itself is unsettling. Is it going to be in Florida? Is it out of Florida? Work has been stressful. I had 2 deals that I've been working on for a really long time with real estate start falling apart. Even though it had nothing to do with me, it had to do with outside circumstances. My oldest son was going through some challenges of his own, that they say that you're only as happy as how happy your children are as well, which also leads into
a bit of codependency. But
right, exactly. But it definitely
no, but you're a mom, of course.
Yeah, I'm a mom, and I definitely tap into it. So there was a lot of different things. So food for me was the last aspect of this because I really wanted a cigarette more than anything else. So I have different types of addictions going on.
So here's the thing. And so you talk about your stress, and you and I have talked privately. First of all, a couple of things happened that I'm going to point out to you. First of all, you were going through some stress, and who did you discuss that with?
No one.
Who did you discuss that with? No one. Exactly. And so we're going to get back to that. You're only as sick as your secrets, because a secret isn't something necessarily that you did bad. I stole money from the bank. A secret is, this is what I'm going through, and I'm embarrassed or I'm uncomfortable to share it with somebody else. And so if you don't share it, who do you get out from?
Nobody.
Nobody. So you're flying on your own. You're flying by the seat of your own pants. And how has that worked for you in the past?
Well, it's something that, as a state of being that I've created.
I asked you a question.
Yes. How has
that worked for you in the past?
Well, in the past, it's happened that my weight's gone up and down, and I made myself sick.
Right.
Ultimately, that it hasn't worked.
Right. So that's the answer. It hasn't worked for you in the past. So what it needs to be this time is what's going to be different. So yeah, you're super honest about saying, wow, I have some stress, and this is going on with the kids, and this is what's going on with my husband. But you don't get to that point where, but how does that make me feel? So how does it make you feel that your husband might move and that things are going to change financially? How does that make you feel?
So it makes me scared. It makes me feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
It makes me feel out of control.
Right.
It makes me feel isolated and lonely in certain ways because I can't control the outcome.
Right.
I'm used to being in charge, and I'm used to controlling things, and I control so many things that when it starts falling apart, I start taking it personally.
Right. And so the whole thing about this whole recovery deal is understanding how it is that I feel. Not that I feel stressed, but what is it inside of me that's making me feel stressed? And so I'm going to tell you that it's always fear. We have fear and we have faith. As long as we're walking around in fear, everything's dismal. When we have faith, and us having faith, there are a lot of steps that we have to take to get to that we have faith. But the basic thing that we're talking about today, that we've been talking about, is honesty. And so, yeah, you're honest on the outside about saying that I'm stressed, but you're not honest about saying, this is how I feel. You're not calling somebody saying, today I'm scared, and I need to share this with you because I'm scared.
So let me ask you, because I know we're going to be going more into honesty in a couple of minutes in that section. So my question to you and everybody else, because I know there's also the side of me that goes, I know it's nuts, which really is not the most unhealthiest thing. Is it really considered a relapse? Which was the other thing. Would I still be able to consider that as my 1 year recovery being Saturday? And I'd love to get other people's feedback. If anyone's willing to give me feedback about this as well. I'd really...
So the question you're asking is, you didn't have Oreos, right?
No.
You didn't eat something that touched that dopamine receptor, no sugar and no starch. You had nuts. So you had food that you knew was going to make you sick. You ate that food anyway, but it wasn't one of the foods that we consider a relapse food, quote unquote, because it wasn't a starch or a sweet. And so you're putting it out there to everyone right now if they would consider that a relapse, if this is something that they went through. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
And if they want to jump in, I've opened up the lines at any stage. This is really not the Haiti and Felice show, so I really value everybody's input because we are a community.
And right now, Haiti is asking for help.
I am asking for help.
Yeah, you're asking for help, which is awesome. So thank you for that. And let's see if who's out there that has anything to add that would like to share with us or share with Haiti. Do you guys consider that a relapse? She ate nuts. Anybody want to comment on that?
No. Nuts are protein and healthy fats, and it was a substitute that solved her problem. And anybody looking at food in general would say that that was a very smart and healthy choice. And Haiti, you have this tendency, in my perception, I qualify it, to beat up on yourself big time. And I think you really need to give yourself some grace and mercy.
And
Yeah.
and I'm not sure because I don't know when you called in. You know that that Haiti has diverticulitis, that she's been hospitalized many times. She had her intestines burst and she almost died. And she knew before she ate the nuts that she was going to be sick enough that she should have been in the emergency room this weekend.
Okay, then I rescind all of my
You're awesome.
and no, I now that I have the big picture, because I didn't really know the medical history. I've heard it, but I don't think it sunk into my, subconscious to bring it up again when you said that. Okay, so Haiti, my question to you. Oh, this is going to be heavier now. Oh, you really opened that one up, Dr. Felice. Okay, so Haiti, of all the things that you picked, consciously knowing the damage that you were going to do to your system, that is self-destructive behavior, and that is beyond just the food thing. My personal feeling is there's some bigger issues going on with you, girl, but you wouldn't know it from looking at you, having lost so much weight, and how beautiful you are, and how much you love people and cooking and hosting, taking care of everybody else but yourself. So my concern is, couldn't you have, it would have probably been better for you to have a cookie than nuts. Sugar,
Do you know what, Sandra?
Sugar, it would not have had the deleterious effect on your digestive system like the nuts did.
Well, you're 100% correct. I mean, you really are. Cookie probably would have been healthier for me in the long run. I was looking, the nature of my disease, and this really is food addiction, is my brain is not wired like other people. I don't see food the same way. And as much as we can logically and rationally look at this, when it comes to rational logic versus emotion, emotion tends to win. And even though I can logically agree with you 100%, and I would have said exactly the same thing as you said, Sandra, to anyone else, I wasn't thinking logically and rationally. I was acting emotionally. And out of that emotional response was I had a group of things that I told myself that were healthy enough to eat, because for a while, for quite a long period, when I landed up in hospital last time, they took 1.5 feet out of my colon. I lost 1.5 feet of my large intestine, and they said to me that they probably removed the part that had diverticulitis. So like any addict, I thought if I abstained from something for long enough, if I had just a little bit or some of it, I'd be able to tolerate it and be able to eat it. But like the regular addict, that substance was so bad for me. It was something that I really should have stayed far away from, but I wasn't thinking rationally. I was actually in full addiction mode.
Right.
And that was something that was in the scope of things that I told myself were healthy, because it was protein and it was low fat and it was crunchy and it substituted for the potato chips and it did all the other things. But really, it's probably one of the worst choices I could have made. And not only that, I'm still beating myself up. I mean, I was nearly 1 year clean, and that to me was that for me was a big, it was something that I valued, and I screwed it up.
Right, and that's one thing that we're going to learn in time, is that the relapse has nothing to do with what you're relapsing on. It's why is the relapse going to happen, and why are you allowing it to happen? Because we do allow it to happen. The stuff that you told yourself, well, it's been a year, and they're only nuts, and it's protein, and it probably won't make me sick. We say, that's your addiction talking. And that was your addiction talking, because that's like the patient, again, that has anaphylaxis and eats shrimp, and they have to call 911, and then it's a year later and they haven't had the shrimp. And they say, oh, I could try shrimp again. Why? Like, why would you try the shrimp? And so it doesn't have anything to do with the food that you ate. It had to do with the reason behind it. And that's what we were talking about. We were talking about your fear. And that's my take on it. And thank you, Sandra. And I would love to hear what anybody else's take on it is.
Is there anybody else on this call besides us?
Yes,
Yes,
there
there
are.
There are a whole lot of people, Sandra.
Just checking.
Yeah, we always have a whole lot of people. Listen, it's hard, This is new for a lot of people. It's new talking about how we feel instead of just getting on a call and talking about how we did or didn't exercise or did or didn't eat cookies, which has nothing to do with the actual process. That's the end result of the process. Getting well is the process. But people talking about, that's why we put it out there, you know, on Facebook, like, what's one secret that you're willing to share? One secret that you have about the way that you eat or the things that you think about before you eat that you're willing to share. So if I'm going to open up both of those, even though I'm putting them together, because I would love for somebody to share about anything, really. You know, this is, when this is done face-to-face, I think it's a lot easier. I think that people feel more exposed. And I think that when we're on a telephone call, it's so much easier to hide behind the computer or the telephone and not feel so much a part of the group.
So one of the things I was thinking of, Dr. Felice, is maybe we should have a face-to-face meeting that we broadcast at the same time.
Yeah.
So is ever local, because we do have people, some people are local, there are also quite a few people on the call who are out of state. And there's some people who want to be on the call that are out of the country, but timeline-wise is a little difficult for them because they're 7 hours ahead of us. So I was thinking maybe we could have a face-to-face meeting and broadcast this as well, which is something I'll put onto Facebook.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that.
And we'll
after.
talk about this afterwards and get some input as well.
Susan, can I call on you? Okay. So that means she's not doing something, but she's listening. Can you hear me, Susan?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
Hi, yeah. So I'm not sure.
Yes, I stay on mute.
Hi, yeah, and I'm not sure how long ago you called in. So I don't know if you heard the background about what happened with Haiti, and that we're talking about whether we would consider whether first of all whether or not Haiti considers that a relapse is going to be about Haiti, ultimately.
Exactly. That
But
was exactly what I was
yes,
going to say.
I know you were.
My opinion, your opinion doesn't matter. In Haiti's mind, she relapsed.
Right.
Or she wouldn't have brought it up, and she wouldn't be asking for support in that way to say, what do you think? Because she already knows.
Of course she does. And that's Susan and I growing up in recovery together. In my recovery together.
Yes.
So Susan, what you bring up is really the point of, it wasn't the substance, it was the attitude. The way I see it as relapse is because of my attitude behind it. I had to finish what was in front of me more than what it was that I was actually eating. So when I'm binging, I have a certain, sorry.
Go ahead, Susan.
No, you were going to say
No,
something.
let Haiti finish.
So when I'm in binge mode, it's got nothing to do with what is in front of me, but more the way that I'm acting.
Right. It never has to do with what's in front of us, because that stuff is always in front of us. It's what put us there and allowed us to decide that this behavior was acceptable for us, for our health, spiritually, for how we feel. Because right now, spiritually, you feel like caca. Go ahead, Susan.
I just wanted to ask a question, because here's what goes through my mind. Because I believe that I'm Superwoman.
Because you are.
Everybody on the call believes that too.
Yes.
And so when I am in stress or in crisis, I can handle it myself. I don't really need anybody else to handle it with me. And when I'm not handling it so well, I justify it and say, and I'll be better tomorrow. Because this is just a moment in time.
Right. And
When the reality is, if I had picked up the telephone and called somebody and said, oh my gosh, I need to talk to somebody, I'm going nuts, whatever that may be. Okay, that's just my phraseology for it. But if I actually admitted out loud that there was something going on, then I would not self-medicate in whatever way I do, excusing it until tomorrow. Instead, I would work through it right then and there, and I would feel better and move on. And I don't know, we had a conversation on Wednesday this week that was about confrontation and stress and how you deal with it. And for me, it sounds like, Haiti, that you had a confrontation with yourself, right?
Right.
And you're addiction won over because for you that was less painful than picking up the phone and saying to Felice, for example, or me, or anybody else in this community, I am getting ready to eat this, and I think that I better talk to you instead. And tell yourself, and if you still want to eat the nuts after the conversation, that's great. Go ahead and do it. But you're not going to want to because you actually got out what the problem was and came to a solution of sorts. And then you're not going to want to eat the nuts anymore. Or
Yeah.
whatever it may be.
That's exactly correct. And before getting to that point of I'm going to eat the nuts, it's realizing, okay, that I'm scared and no one's going to think less of me. If I call Felice right now and say, you know what, this is going on and I'm scared, I'm certainly not going to say, well, I don't want to be your friend anymore because, you know, that really makes you less of a person and so I can't count on you anymore. And so if anything, when we share like that, it makes us feel closer to each other. And you allowing me to help you is actually a gift that you give to me, and also helps me to realize that if I need help, that I can count on you too. Correct? That's why Wait for Recovery is a community. In a community is a whole bunch of people working together for the greater good of themselves and of the community.
So one of the things is really learning the verbiage, because I'm a person who very seldomly and in the past has never really asked for help. It's not something that's in my vocabulary. I know now that I need to, but it's really being able to have the vocabulary and be able to pick up the phone and know what I'm asking for. So it's retraining my brain. So instead of eating nuts or going nuts,
Eating nuts and going nuts.
as,
Which is exactly what happened. Or he went nuts and then
yeah,
ate nuts.
exactly. Is really just to be able to pick up the phone. So that is a muscle I think I need to develop that I think is going to take time.
Right, and taking the time too is getting rid of the shame, which is what it is for you. You know, you could still be Superwoman and get scared. You know, being brave, you know, everybody writes about that. Being brave isn't about not being afraid. Being brave is about being afraid, owning up to it, sharing it, getting help, and moving on through it. That's bravery. Walking around saying, oh, everything's fine, I'm just fine, which Susan, you know, I used to do that all the time. How are you? Perfect. How are you? I'm perfect. Everything is perfect. That's not having courage. That's not being brave. That's being full of crap. And it's being the person that I think that you want me to be, so that you don't see the scared person that I am. Because maybe if you see the scared person that I am, you're not going to think that I'm so great. Maybe you're not going to want to be so close to me. Maybe you're going to look at me differently. And if you don't think I'm so great, then maybe I won't think I'm so great. That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, so what I'm
here. Conversation. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Let me ask you a question. When you were considering eating the nuts, what did you believe was going on?
I didn't stop and think. I was in total addiction mode. There was nothing in this place or this house that was talking to me other than stuffing food in my mouth. It wasn't rational.
What was the trigger is my question.
Oh, the trigger's been carrying on for a couple of weeks. I've been noticing that something was going on, but I didn't take the time to stop, think about it, journal it, or just really say this is what... I could throw things against the wall and say I'm dealing with a whole lot of different stresses, but I didn't actually take the time to sit down, stop, and listen. So by the time it hit Friday night, Dr. Felice could have called me and I would have told her I was fine. But yeah, I would have absolutely told her I was fine. But I wasn't. The thing with me when I'm in binge mode is really isolating myself and just getting into action more than rationalizing what I'm actually doing. Because if I was rational, I would have gone, picked up the phone and said, Susan, I need help, or Dr. Felice, I need help, or something. But I wasn't rational.
Right, and actually it's not that you weren't rational, it's that you weren't honest with yourself.
Right.
Rationality to me has more to do with math. You know, this equals this equals this. How you're feeling, and just saying how you're feeling, that's not so much about being rational as it is with being honest. Is you being honest with you. to be able to say, okay, today I'm Superwoman, but today I'm Superwoman who's a little bit scared. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Dr. Felice, may I ask you a question?
Of course.
Okay. My question is, when you're in recovery, it's super important to have a sponsor.
Correct.
So I would call a sponsor in my world an accountability partner is the word I would use.
Exactly.
Outside of recovery, inside of recovery, it's a sponsor. And when you have a sponsor, one of the things you do is speak to that sponsor every single day, right?
That's the usual, especially when you're new in recovery. Absolutely.
Right. So my point is, or my question is, if Haiti had a sponsor, and 3 weeks ago the stressors started coming, they probably would not have gotten to the point that they did because they would have been addressed on a daily basis, little by little. Is that true?
And I'm going to call Haiti out because she does have a sponsor. And she called her sponsor once. I mean, we've already shared this. She called her sponsor once. Sponsor didn't call her back. And she didn't call her sponsor back all week. So yes, had she spoken with her sponsor, checked in with her sponsor every day, and was a little honest, would the relapse have happened? I don't believe that it would have.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. So as a community who we are, if we adapt that behavior and have somebody that we are accountable to or we speak to or that sponsors us on a daily basis, that would be a great way to prevent where Haiti wound up or where I wind up or, when I'm being Superwoman.
And that's so awesome. I'm going to let you talk in a second, but that's so much to say. But that's so awesome that you said that, because you know what happens with obesity that's different than alcoholism. With an alcoholic, when we talk about the tools that we have to use, the only thing that we talk about are tools of recovery. Sponsor, go to meetings, journal, do those things. And what happens a lot of times in the obesity community is everybody that thinks that the tools are diet and exercise, lifestyle change and exercise. Lifestyle change and exercise are the end result of recovery. If I'm dieting and exercising, it doesn't mean I have recovery. But if I'm in recovery, I can do that lifestyle change and exercise and all of that stuff because it comes so much more easily because I have recovery.
So within that recovery stops the justification of why you're going to use or eat something as well. And it becomes easier over time.
Correct.
So what is actually really interesting is I wasn't craving the Oreo cookie. Like those things that I would have gone to before are not the things that I picked up this time.
Great.
But I also think what Susan said about being able to depend on each other, I think Facebook, most of us use Facebook, and if anyone's in crisis, just to make a post, I need to talk to someone now, is anyone available, might be a great source of us for having support from each other, to be able to lean on each other, which I'm going to put out there, which I'd love to hear feedback if that's a format that we could use. Because I was in crisis, I should have listened, my ego got the best of me. And I'm paying for it today and this whole weekend. It has not been comfortable.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, but it's a lesson learned.
Yeah. Been there, done that. It's just, it's really tough, and the toughest part is admitting that, that this is what happened. And that's, I'm not going to say that whatever happens is, well, yeah, I am going to say whatever happens is okay. Whatever happened 2 seconds ago, there's nothing that we can do about. But whatever we learned from what we went through and our decision to step into the solution or to make that change, that's the recovery part. That's how we get well.
So this brings up the whole issue of secrets. So if I wasn't keeping this as a secret, and it's something I actually decided to pick up the phone and start talking about 2 weeks ago, could have prevented this. Even though I did go to meetings and even though I have been participating on calls, I haven't been that honest. So
wait. So you've been going to meetings and doing whatever so that on the outside, everybody thought that you were fine. You're the perfect Superwoman that you're supposed to be because you're doing what you're supposed to do, as opposed to doing what it is that you would do to get yourself well.
So when it comes to what's eating us, So it's really not what I'm eating, but more about what's eating me.
Right.
Which leads me to the question that you posted this week. What was the question you asked us this week?
Even if it's just about the behavior, the food behavior, what's something that you're willing to share? You know, a secret that you're willing to share. I had an amazing sponsee, young girl. She was a PA student, and she followed me a little bit because I'm a physician assistant. And amazing young girl, and we started talking, and everybody knows that I'm in recovery. And she was a binger. And it took her so long. We did step work together. And she said to me once, and she was crying, and she had said, you know, I used to clean the table for my mom all the time. This girl was young. She was in her probably mid-20s. I would always make sure to clean the table. And what I would do is when I was done, I would take a piece of paper, a piece of tinfoil, and I would put my scraps of food on that, and I would always take the garbage out. And later, I would go out to the garbage, and I would get whatever food I wanted. And my response to her was, and she was crying, and she was like she was the only person in the world that did that, when in fact everybody that binges does that. Or I shouldn't say everybody, but a whole bunch of people that binge do that. And so when we share that stuff, we realize that in recovery we have a whole lot of the sames and not a whole lot of differences, and that's what allows us as a community to help each other. So that was one thing that she shared with me that she thought was awful, that she thought I was going to hate her for, or I was going to, you know, think that she was a bad person, or I was going to judge her for it, when in fact, I almost had a giggle, and I really just wanted to give her a hug and let her know, hey, that's what we do. That's okay, that's what we do. So thanks for sharing that with me, and let's talk about the solution. How does that not happen next time? So is anybody brave enough to share one of their secrets, whether it's about food or how they're feeling about anything that they've been, any kind of secret that they've kept, about their eating habits that they're willing to share, about anything else? Gosh, this is a tough
Hello.
crowd. Hi.
Hey, hi, my name is Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
And hi. Gosh, I don't know where to begin. I want to say it's more, I guess, more of a love affair with food,
Yep.
with good food. And I get to the point where I literally crave carbs.
Mm-hmm.
I can taste,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not, I can literally taste it.
Yep.
And I'll drink water for walking, at work, whatever the case may be, to try to change or to try to get it off of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But it literally has gotten to the point where it's constant. I think that probably the first thing that's in my head is that food,
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to eat? What are we going to find? How do you fix that? You know what I mean? I'm like, why am I already thinking about food? I hadn't even got out of bed yet.
And so when you share that's the same thing that the alcoholic shares. So I don't know how much you know about me, but I'm in recovery. I'm an alcoholic. So for me, I would wake up in the morning, and the first thing that I would think of is, when am I going to drink? Where am I going to drink? How am I going to drink? And how am I going to do it so nobody knows? How am I going to stay healthy? So in any kind of addiction, they talk about a physical craving, which is what you have, and a mental obsession, which is what you have. And the best thing about that, I'm sorry to say, is that you know it. And so because you know it, there's a solution for you. The solution is what we talk about. The solution for me was in step work, having a sponsor and doing step work. But your first step is honesty. And so I don't know how honest you've been with other people, but bless you right now for coming out and for sharing that with us, because that's the first thing, is to admit that you got the problem, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, this is Haiti. The interesting thing is, I'd sit with my sisters and my family, and we'd be eating a meal, a delicious meal, and then we'd be planning the next meal. I mean, we in the middle of eating, we all full, and we're discussing what we're going to be eating at the next one and planning for it. And that's a cycle that I would get into. When it comes to me and my food, the food would start talking to me. It wasn't a question of the nourishment or is it making me healthy or does it make me feel better in terms of being able to achieve my goal. All I was doing was I was craving, and I still do crave those foods, my trigger foods, which have been essential for me to define and find out what they are the carbs and the sugars and those salty foods, those crunchy foods. Those are the things that the minute I start eating them, I can eat loads of them and I don't get full. I don't have that trigger that when I press that button, it goes, hey, do you know what? You've had 2 bites, you're done, you're full. I've got to finish every single thing here.
And so in the rooms of AA or OA or whatever, they have that, 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. Meaning once we take that first bite or that first drink, that was too many already, because that's going to start that cycle of 1,000 is never enough. And that is what makes you the same and makes you the same pretty much as anybody else who's in addiction. The thing about the recovery part is, it's knowing what your trigger foods are and it's knowing how to change your lifestyle. But most importantly, it's learning about what it is inside of yourself that's making you do the things that you do, that's allowing you to make poor choices that are going to hurt you. And so in the big book, they talk about, I love this story, so I have to share it with you guys. So I wish I was reading it, but they talk about the story of the guy that loves to walk in traffic. And so he walks into the middle of the road, let's say on I-95, and he gets hit by a car and he breaks his ankle. And that's like really horrible, and he has to go to the hospital. And then 2 weeks later, he's feeling better, he's got his crutches, and so he does it again. And that time he breaks his hip and he's in the hospital for a couple of months, and his friends are talking, what are you doing? Why are you walking out in traffic? And 6 months goes by, and he swears he's never going to do it again. And 6 months goes by, and he's walking out in the middle of I-95 in traffic again. Each time he walks out into traffic, he knows there's a chance that he's going to kill himself today or someday. And that's how horrible and how it's such the truth about any kind of addiction. So the whole addiction thing is that you wake up in the morning thinking about doing or not doing something. You probably promise yourself in the morning that today, just for today, you're not going to eat or you're not going to do something that's going to hurt you. And then it's 2:00 in the afternoon and you do it anyway. And you go to bed guilty, and you wake up with shame. And you carry that shame, which puts you back into that cycle of continuing to do the things. Well, you know what? I already feel bad, so I might as well eat da-da-da-da-da, which just keeps that cycle going and going. The thing about recovery, I'm going to say again, isn't just about knowing what to eat, because everybody knows what to eat. Everybody knows what hurts them and doesn't hurt them. It's what is happening inside of me that my brain can think only of what I need to do today to change my brain chemistry so that I don't have to deal with what's happening inside of me.
So for me, Dr. Felice, when I diet, it's direct road to failure. For me, I would start off the day going, I'm not eating cheesecake, or I'm not eating bread, or I'm not eating this. And everywhere I looked, I'd see an ad for bread. I'd walk past a bakery that was making fresh bread. I'd be making sandwiches for the kids, and all I'd be smelling are these carbs and these starches, and eventually they would start talking to me. So by the end of the day, I would have indulged in it because, I haven't eaten the whole day, and what is one piece?
Right.
And then that one piece becomes,
Katie, wait a second. I know why that's happening to you based on what you just said. Because you're putting it out in the universe, and you're saying, I'm not going to eat bread. And because you said I'm not going to eat bread, your brain does not hear the not, it hears the bread. So you're drawing the bread to you. So you really should isn't a good word. I have to should on myself. So if it were me, I would work on not talking to yourself about food. And the minute food comes to your mind, don't even justify and say, I'm not this, I'm not that, whatever. Change your focus. Think of something else. Because if you constantly think about what you shouldn't do, that's exactly what you're going to be attracted to.
Go ahead.
So, Sandra, I get what you're saying 100%, and thank you for stepping up and speaking. For me, I've got a sensitivity. So if I put that yeast and that bread into my body, I've got almost an allergy towards it, that the minute I put it in, I have almost like an allergic reaction to it. I can't get enough of it. It overtakes my being.
I'm not arguing that. That's
Yeah.
the whole thing about the shrimp. Don't eat the shrimp.
Exactly.
You shouldn't have eaten the nuts.
So I shouldn't just mention that I'm not eating that food today. I get what you're saying.
But what I'm saying, no, you're missing what I'm saying. If I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant.
Exactly.
You're going to think of a pink elephant because your brain does not hear the don't.
Got
When you
it.
say don't eat the bread, it's just going to create situations where you're going to be faced with bread.
Well, and
So
I,
all I'm saying is just don't, consciously make it a real strong effort when something food pops in your head. Think of marbles. Think of basketball. Think of something other than food. I'm just...
And I love that you said think of marbles, because what I would think of is, why am I losing my marbles? What is happening so that I want to reach for something to change my brain chemistry? Because as much as we talk about the food, I go to meetings, I raise my hand, I say I'm an alcoholic and I'm glad to be in recovery. I use the word alcoholic, I let everybody know that I'm in recovery, and I know when I wake up in the morning, just for today, I don't need to pick up a drink. But I know just for today, I don't need to pick up a drink because I've done the step work and I'm going through recovery, which ain't easy every day. I'm going to promise you that. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it with their food, with alcohol, with sex, with shopping, with whatever, drugs, whatever it is. The thing is, what's eating you? Again, it isn't what you're eating. It's why you're eating what you're eating. It's once we get to the why, you know what? If we go back to the beginning and we talk about the fact, Haiti, that you were afraid, and if you would have sat down with somebody and said, you know what? I'm petrified this week. This is happening. Maybe I'm feeling a little unloved. I'm feeling a little insecure. I'm feeling a little out of sorts. I feel out of control. I feel like I want to be in control, and gone through those with somebody and had a little bit of peace, a little bit of serenity, probably a whole lot of serenity, you never would have gotten to that point where you talk to the nuts or you let the nuts talk you into eating them. It wouldn't have gotten to that point. That's the whole thing about recovery, is understanding why we're doing what we're doing so that we don't pick up. I'm not going to eat the nuts because they're going to make me sick, because of course you know that. Sandra, of course you know I'm not going to eat the bread, because if I have a piece of bread, I'm going to want 900 breads. I know if I have a drink, one drink is never going to be the end of it. But it's, why do I feel like having a drink right now? What's happening inside of me? How do I get that help to feel well, to have some peace of mind and some serenity, so that I won't pick up? In the promises in the big book, part of what they say, and actually I'm going to read the promises next time, but they say, we will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. When I know peace and I'm serene, the last thing I'm doing is thinking about having any behavior that's going to mess up my serenity. That's the recovery part.
So when you have the serenity prayer and it says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Absolutely.
This is what you're talking about.
Yeah. The courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. The things you can't change, your kid misbehaved in school. No matter how much you're trying to teach him, he misbehaved in school. That behavior's already happened. You can't change it. The courage to change the things that I can, well, what I can change is how I feel about the situation. Am I concerned? Yes. Fear and concern are two different things. Fear doesn't serve me, unless it's don't put your hand on the fire because you're going to get burned. It's recovery is all about the solution. So understanding the stuff that I can't change, changing what I can, and knowing what that difference is. That's where the serenity comes in, is knowing the difference.
So part of this, what I get from people asking is, what are the tools? So recovery takes certain practices. What I'm understanding, because I'm a lay person, it takes honesty, which seems to be the key principle that we're talking about. It takes dealing with what's eating me rather than just what I'm eating. And also the other tools that I've come into contact with that seem to work and help me as well is that the eating plan for me is essential in terms of to alleviate that obsession with food.
Yeah.
If I have an eating plan and I know what it looks like, even though we don't advocate for any diets, but I do have certain amounts of food that I can eat during the day, and I send it to a sponsor so that they know what I'm eating that day.
Yeah.
That helps me from obsessing about it, and I have the time in my phone knowing when I need to eat. Knowing what my trigger foods are, and for me, yes, it is nuts is one of them. The other things for me are those starchy, sugary, salty, crunchy foods, and abstaining away from those so it doesn't trigger.
That's your shrimp.
Wanting more of that.
Right.
That gratitude of being out of myself and knowing that there's a greater purpose and connecting with being open to something more spiritual. So having that gratitude, for me it's in the morning. I know you like the evening gratitude. Journaling, I definitely find that helps me in being able to put pen to paper, stops those voices in my head from talking, because this is a disease and I need to be able to work through it in a different way. These groups every single week, honestly, I'm grateful for everyone who comes on this call because it absolutely helps me. Going to meetings, being connected is definitely something that gives me strength and assists me.
And knowing that we're not alone.
And knowing that we're not alone.
You
and
know,
that I can
makes
find
life,
someone for help.
Right. It makes life so much less scary when I know that I'm not alone.
Right. And the other thing I started doing is reading. I never read the big book before, and I started reading it, and it's actually a very interesting read.
Yeah, it's an interesting book, actually.
There's some
time
great material out there. So I wanted to also just put it out there. What are things that you guys use that help you?
Susan's awesome. She's an awesome journaler. She reads positive stuff in the morning. She does gratitude. Susan does everything. Susan, I'm singing your praises. Yeah.
I do all those
Yes,
things.
you do.
Except when I don't. You know, I'm in big trouble.
Right.
But to me, that's a sure sign.
Right. That's your relapse.
Absolute.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. Absolutely correct.
Right.
And, you know, so I do all those things. When I don't know, for me, and I know for you, when you got to that point where you just couldn't take it anymore and you wanted to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Or you knew getting better was going to be better than not being here, or whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You hit that point. And from that point forward, what I did was, and the reason that I do read and journal and plug into audios and anything I can to keep my head where I want it to be, as opposed to where it might want to go, that's critically important for me. Critically important. And when I miss a day, not so bad. When I miss 2 days, okay, well, by third day I'll get there. And then I start making up reasons, you know. And then after a week, everybody knows I have not been using my tools. Because people in my world know that's what I do, and they know immediately that I'm not practicing, you know, and keeping my head where it needs to be.
Right.
And I can tell you that it works fabulously, but in the beginning, I became obsessed with it and very determined. Because it was critically important to develop the habit, no matter how silly, dumb, whatever I thought it was.
Right.
But I had to be desperate enough to come to that point. And then when I was desperate enough, I started all those behaviors. And so I ingrained them in me, so it's a must for me. You know, every morning. I must take a shower and I must journal. That kind of thing.
And I invite everybody to do that as well, because we all know that with those tools, spiritually, that's the beginning of making some type of spiritual recovery, is using those tools. Thank you, Susan.
So how important is spiritual connection with recovery?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Well, for me, without spiritual connection, there's no recovery. And so when I talk about spirituality, We'll talk about the spiritual principle behind the 12 steps, but the first 3 spiritual principles are honesty, hope, and faith. So being honest with myself, having hope, that glimpse of hope, knowing that I can get better, and then having faith, which is reaching out to others, to whatever your quote unquote higher powers. For me, it's the positive energy in the universe. For some people, it's God. For some people, it's their toy troll that they had when they were 3. It doesn't matter. Just something that you know, that you realize is there, that allows you to ask for help and to get well.
So I invite everyone to do their gratitude journal. Well, to journal some form of gratitude every single day, no matter what that looks like. You can either do it on our Facebook, you can do it on paper, you can even tell someone as well, but just to incorporate that as your practice that you do on a daily basis.
And you know what? It's cool to tell somebody as well, but you need to write it down. Like if we're going to talk about recovery, let's talk about recovery. So writing it down is 2 seconds of something that you promise yourself to help yourself get better. So it's okay to say that too. Write it down.
So I'm going to also invite every one of you to invite someone else to come join the call on a Sunday. Next week we are trying something different. We're going to do a 9 o'clock in the morning call on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
We've had some requests from people overseas and in different time zones, and they said it would be easier for them. So we're going to give it a shot and give it a try. We do record these calls and we post them back on our group. So please make sure you belong to our Wait for Recovery group on Facebook. We also have WeightWait, WEIGHT, for FOR, recovery.com, where we have our blog. We love interacting with you, so please message us, post on our page. We are here to support each other. We are here to be here for each other. I'm going to reach out next time I need help. And I really appreciate all of you. And I'm just going to hand over to Dr. Felice.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, that I am so blessed and so grateful to be in recovery. I'm so blessed and so grateful that there are people out there, like even the whole bunch of people that are just listening and aren't sharing. I know that you guys are listening and not sharing for whatever your reason is. My hope for you is that you'll feel a little bit more comfortable on our next call and share with all of us. Remember, your sharing doesn't just help you, it helps me. It helps the next person that needed to hear exactly what it is that you said so that they can get some help as well. I just want to say good night. And again, thank you. I am so grateful for all of you. Haiti, I'm so grateful for you. Everybody who shared, Susan, I love you so much. I have to give a shout out to you. I can't thank you enough for all of your love and your support. And thank you, everybody, for being a part of our community.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Hugs.
Good night.
Good night.